When the lights go out tonight and the shelves are already empty, the 5 foods sitting in your kitchen right now could be the only thing standing between you and complete breakdown. Not the food you plan to buy, not the emergency kit you meant to order, what you already have. And most people, when they actually think about it, realize their kitchen is full of things that need power, need water, need time. In a real crisis, those 3 things vanish first. And item number 1 on this list is the one your body will scream for within the first 24 hours, even if you never notice it under normal conditions. Stay through the entire video, because the gap in your preparation is almost certainly not what you think it is. Number 5. Iodized salt. Most people hear salt and think seasoning. That is the first and most dangerous mistake. Salt is not about flavor. Salt is about control. Your nervous system runs on electrolyte balance. Your muscles fire because of it. Your heart maintains its rhythm because of it. Your kidneys regulate fluids because of it. Remove salt from that equation, and none of those systems stay reliable. You don't collapse dramatically, you just start making slightly worse decisions, feeling slightly slower, becoming slightly less capable, until the slightly becomes completely. And here is what almost nobody understands about salt storage. Salt itself does not expire. It can sit in a container for decades and still be chemically intact. But iodized salt is not just salt. The iodine added to it is a separate compound, and that compound degrades. Heat accelerates it. Humidity accelerates it. Repeatedly opening the container accelerates it. You can have a container of salt that looks exactly the same as the day you bought it, smells the same, tastes the same, and the iodine is mostly gone. What does that mean? It means your thyroid is not getting what it needs, your body's energy regulation system starts drifting, and you feel it as fatigue, as brain fog, as a vague inability to perform. You eat, you rest, nothing improves. Because the problem is not your calories. The problem is your body cannot process and deploy those calories without proper thyroid function. That gap between eating and actually functioning is where people lose situations they should have survived. Think about what that looks like in practice. You were 12 hours into a blackout. You ate something, you rested, but your reflexes are slow. Your thinking is cloudy. You are making small errors. And you do not connect any of that to salt, because salt feels like a kitchen detail, not a survival factor. That is exactly why this sits at number 5, not because it is less important, but because it is the most overlooked, the most misunderstood, and the one that fails silently. How do you store it correctly? Move it out of paper packaging and into an airtight container. Glass or hard plastic works well. Keep it away from any heat source, away from humidity, and in a location where it does not get opened and resealed repeatedly. A cool, dry, stable environment. That is the entire strategy. It requires nothing complicated, just deliberate placement. The practical applications go beyond seasoning. You can mix a basic oral rehydration solution using water, salt, and a small amount of sugar. That solution helps your body absorb fluids more efficiently under stress. It helps stabilize blood pressure. It helps reduce the dizziness and weakness that accompany dehydration. You are not making medicine. You're giving your body the basic chemical environment it needs to keep running. In conditions where you are physically exerting yourself, sweating, under stress, that solution is worth more than extra food. There's also a food preservation function. Without refrigeration, salt becomes one of the few tools available to extend the viability of certain foods. This is not a modern technique. Civilizations built on salt precisely because of this. The ability to preserve meat, fish, and vegetables without electricity is a skill that salt makes possible. One more thing most people skip over. Regular salt and iodized salt are not interchangeable for survival purposes. Regular salt handles electrolytes but contributes nothing to thyroid function. If you stockpile the wrong version, you have solved half the problem and ignored the other half. Check your labels. Make sure what you have says iodized. Now, look around your kitchen for a moment. How many of the things in there could you use right now, without power, without running water, without 30 minutes of preparation. Count them. That number is probably much lower than the total amount of food you see. In that gap between what looks like preparation and what actually works under pressure is what this entire video is about. Here is something worth sitting with. Across the world right now, real economic disruptions are affecting supply chains. Prices shift.
Shortages appear, not in dramatic, headline-making ways at first, gradually, quietly, through small price increases and missing items and delayed restocking. And by the time it becomes undeniable, the window to prepare has already narrowed. The people who are in the best position are not the ones who reacted to headlines. They are the ones who were already ready before the headlines existed. Number 4. Oats. The food that functions when everything else requires conditions you no longer have. When extended power outages are studied, one pattern repeats consistently. People have food. They do not have usable food. They have pasta that needs 20 minutes of boiling. They have rice that needs precise water ratios and sustained heat. They have frozen meals that need a microwave. They have things that, under normal conditions, are perfectly practical, and under crisis conditions are completely inaccessible. Oats break that pattern, and the way they break it is simple enough that most people overlook it entirely. Raw oats are edible without cooking. Not ideal, not delicious, but edible, digestible, and nutritionally functional. You can eat them dry. You can soak them in cold water for 20 minutes and have something that your body can process without issue. In a situation where fuel for cooking is limited, where water is being rationed, where time and energy are both running low, the ability to eat something without any preparation at all is not a small advantage. It is the difference between being fed and being stuck. The nutritional profile of oats is what makes them genuinely valuable rather than just convenient. They are built around complex carbohydrates. That means slow release, sustained energy rather than a spike and crash. When your stress levels are elevated, your sleep is disrupted, and your body is working harder than normal, stable blood sugar becomes more important than under regular conditions. An unstable energy supply does not just make you feel bad, it impairs judgment. It makes physical tasks harder. It makes emotional regulation harder. And in a situation that already requires everything you have, losing that edge compounds every other challenge. Oats are also gentle on digestion. This matters more than people realize. Under stress, the digestive system is one of the first things to become unpredictable. Rich foods, heavy proteins, unfamiliar combinations, all of these can cause problems when the body is already under strain. Oats process cleanly. They do not add a digestive burden on top of everything else. Shelf life sits at 1 to 2 years under standard conditions, stored in an airtight container in a cool, dry location away from light and temperature swings. That extends to 3 to 5 years. The limiting factor is the natural oils in oats. They do not cause sudden spoilage. They cause gradual rancidity. The smell changes slowly. The flavor becomes stale and bitter. And then you reach a point where you have oats, but they are unpleasant enough that eating them becomes its own challenge. The solution is simple, but requires action. Do not leave oats in their original packaging for long-term storage. Transfer them to sealed containers. Keep them away from heat. Rotate them so you are actually using what you have and restocking. If you have Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, shelf life extends further, well past 5 years in some cases. This is not complex, it just requires doing it. One practical note: the less processed the oat, the better the storage life. Rolled oats store better than instant oats. Steel-cut oats store better than rolled. Instant oats have had much of their natural structure removed for speed, and that process also reduces stability. For long-term storage, the less refined version is the better choice. For immediate accessibility with no preparation, the more processed version has its own advantage. Knowing the difference lets you stock strategically rather than just filling a shelf. In practical use, oats combine easily with the other items on this list. Mixed with honey for fast and slow energy together, paired with peanut butter for protein and caloric density, soaked in water and consumed cold when no heat is available. The flexibility is part of the value. You are not locked into one preparation method. You can work with whatever conditions you have.
Consider how many foods in your kitchen require every system to be functioning normally. Your freezer works because of electricity. Your stove works because of gas or electricity. Your refrigerator keeps things safe because of consistent power. Remove any one of those systems, and entire categories of food become either dangerous or impossible to prepare. Oats require none of those systems. That independence is the real asset. Number 3. Peanut butter. Dense, stable, ready, and almost universally underrated in the context of serious food storage. The caloric density of peanut butter is the starting point. 2 tablespoons delivers roughly 190 calories. At a jar that typically holds around 16 servings, that is over 3,000 calories per container. Compact, shelf-stable, no preparation required. When calories become scarce and weight and space become constraints, that ratio matters enormously. This is not food that merely exists on your shelf. It is food that performs under the exact conditions where most food fails. The protein content is equally significant. Each serving carries around 8 grams. For sustained physical function, for muscle maintenance, for immune response, for hormone production, protein is not optional, it is foundational. You can run on carbohydrates for a while, you can push through on low fat, but consistently low protein degrades your body in ways that are initially invisible and eventually severe. Weakness, slower recovery, reduced immune function, cognitive impairment. These do not arrive as dramatic events, they accumulate, and by the time the effects are visible, the deficit is already significant. Peanut butter provides fat alongside protein, healthy, unsaturated fats, the kind that support brain function, hormone balance, and sustained energy. In a situation where food variety is limited, maintaining fat intake becomes a secondary challenge that many people do not anticipate. Most emergency food defaults toward carbohydrates, oats, grains, crackers. That is fine for short periods, but over days and weeks, the absence of adequate fat creates its own set of problems that peanut butter addresses without requiring any other preparation. The practical accessibility is complete. No cooking, no water, no heat, no equipment. Open the container and it is ready. You can eat it directly. You can spread it on anything. You can mix it with oats, with honey, with dried fruit, with crackers. It functions as a standalone meal component or as an enhancer for other staples. In conditions where simplicity is not just a preference, but a necessity, this matters. Shelf life is typically 1 to 2 years for conventional peanut butter. The variables that affect it are heat and oxidation. Natural peanut butter, made without added stabilizers, separates and goes rancid more quickly. If you are stockpiling for extended storage, conventional peanut butter with standard preservatives outperforms natural varieties. The oil separation you see in natural peanut butter is not a storage defect. It is the absence of the emulsifiers that keep conventional peanut butter stable. Knowing that helps you choose correctly. Storage requires nothing complicated. Keep it sealed, avoid heat. Once opened, use within a reasonable period. If you are stockpiling multiple jars, store them in the coolest, stable location available. Rotation, using older stock and replacing it, keeps your supply fresh without waste. This is not a difficult system. It requires only consistency. There is a psychological element to peanut butter that almost never gets discussed in preparedness contexts. In high-stress situations, familiar foods carry real value. Something that tastes recognizable, that carries normal associations, that provides sensory consistency. This is not a luxury consideration. Stress degrades mental performance. Sensory familiarity is one of the ways people maintain psychological stability under strain. Having food that connects to normal life matters. The practical nutrition is the primary value. The psychological familiarity is a genuine secondary benefit. Rhetorical question worth sitting with. What percentage of the food currently in your kitchen could you consume right now without any preparation if you had to? Most people, when they actually think through that question honestly, arrive at a much smaller number than they expected. Number 2. Canned fish and canned meat. The protein source that requires nothing, lasts years, and covers the single biggest gap in most emergency food supplies. Most emergency food supplies are carbohydrate heavy: grains, oats, crackers, pasta. This is understandable. Carbohydrates are inexpensive, shelf-stable, and widely available. But a diet built entirely on carbohydrates without adequate protein begins to show its limits within days. The body does not just need energy, it needs the building blocks for maintenance, repair, immune function, and structural integrity. Canned fish, tuna, salmon, sardines, mackerel delivers complete protein in a shelf-stable format, ready to consume directly from the container. No water required, no heat required, no preparation beyond opening. Each can provides a meaningful protein serving, usually around 20 to 25 grams depending on the variety and size. At that protein density, a modest supply of canned fish covers your foundational protein needs for days without any other protein source. The fat content in fatty fish like sardines and mackerel provides an additional advantage. Omega-3 fatty acids support brain function, reduce inflammatory stress response, and contribute to cardiovascular stability. Under sustained psychological and physical stress, these compounds do more than support general health. They actively support the cognitive function and emotional regulation you need to make sound decisions. This is not minor. In a situation where judgment matters, brain-supporting nutrition is a direct operational advantage. Shelf life on properly stored canned fish and meat runs 2 to 5 years. Some products remain viable and safe well beyond that. The key variables are storage conditions and can integrity. High heat accelerates degradation of both flavor and nutritional value. Cans stored in cool, dry conditions maintain quality significantly longer than those exposed to temperature cycling. The storage error that appears most often involves placement. Cans stored directly on concrete floors, especially in basements or garages, are exposed to moisture wicking through the concrete. That moisture contact accelerates external rust. Rusted cans do not necessarily indicate compromised contents, but they make it difficult to assess integrity, and the risk of seal failure increases over time. Simple solution: store cans on shelves or wooden surfaces, away from direct contact with concrete or damp walls. Regular inspection matters. Look for bulging lids. Look for corrosion around seams. Look for any dents that compromise the structural integrity of the can. A bulging lid indicates gas production inside the can, a clear sign of bacterial activity and a clear reason to discard. Seam damage creates entry points for contamination. These are not theoretical concerns. They are the specific failure modes that turn a supply of food into a health risk. Periodic inspection, twice a year, is a minimal time investment that protects your entire supply. Canned meat, chicken, beef, turkey, covers the same protein need with different flavor profiles and different textures. Some people find the variety across canned fish and canned meat provides enough sensory difference to prevent the monotony that can undermine eating consistency under stress. This is practical. Food you will not eat is not actually a resource. The direct consumption capability, no cooking, no preparation, cannot be overstated. In a prolonged crisis scenario, the ability to access complete nutrition without any supporting systems is the entire advantage. Other foods require combinations of resources that may be unavailable. This requires nothing except a can opener. Here is the underlying logic that runs through this entire list. Your body does not run on food quantity. It runs on specific inputs: electrolytes, macronutrients in proper ratios, compounds that support specific physiological systems. You can have abundant calories and still fail the needs that determine function. The people who understand that, who stock specifically rather than generally, are in a categorically different position than those who stockpile volume without considering composition. Number 1. Honey. The single item on this list with essentially no expiration, no preparation requirement, no storage complexity, and a range of functions that nothing else on this list replicates. Honey found in ancient tombs, thousands of years old, was still chemically intact, still edible. This is not mythology, it is documented. The properties that make honey shelf-stable are intrinsic to its composition: low water content, high sugar concentration, natural antimicrobial compounds including hydrogen peroxide produced by the enzyme glucose oxidase. These properties work together to create an environment where microbial growth is essentially impossible under proper storage. The single thing that destroys honey is moisture. Water introduced into honey from a wet spoon, from high humidity air, from an improperly sealed container, dilutes its natural defenses and allows fermentation. The honey does not become immediately unusable, it begins to change. The sugars shift, the smell alters slightly. Over time, it becomes alcoholic. The transformation can be subtle enough that you do not notice until the quality has already significantly declined. This is why the storage rule for honey is narrow and non-negotiable. Sealed container, dry spoon or utensil every time, stored in a location with stable temperature and low humidity, not in the refrigerator. Cold temperature causes crystallization, a natural and harmless phase change where the sugars form solid crystals. Crystallized honey is not spoiled. Gently warming it restores liquid form. But refrigerator storage accelerates crystallization unnecessarily, and hardened honey is harder to use quickly in conditions where speed matters. Keep it at room temperature, sealed, dry.
That is the entire storage requirement. The fast energy function of honey is pharmacologically straightforward. The sugars in honey, primarily glucose and fructose, are already in simple monosaccharide form. Your body does not need to break them down before absorbing them. They enter your bloodstream rapidly. This means that when your energy drops suddenly, when you feel the onset of cognitive slowdown, when your hands become unsteady, when your thinking becomes effortful, a small amount of honey can reverse that trajectory faster than almost any other food. This is not about consuming large quantities. A tablespoon or two delivers the spike your system needs to return to functional baseline. The effect is temporary. It does not replace a complete meal, but in the specific moment where you need to pull yourself back to operational capacity, the speed matters. This is a rapid intervention, not a sustained nutrition strategy. Knowing the difference determines when and how you deploy it. The antimicrobial properties have documented practical value. In historical contexts where antiseptics were unavailable, honey was applied to wounds as a protective covering. The mechanism is real. Hydrogen peroxide, high osmotic pressure, and low pH collectively inhibit bacterial growth at the wound site. This does not make honey equivalent to modern wound care. What it makes honey is a functional option when modern wound care is unavailable. Applying it to a minor cut or abrasion when nothing else is at hand is not superstition. It is using the properties that exist. There is a distinction between having something and knowing what it can do. Most households already have honey, but the percentage of those households that understands its antimicrobial function, its rapid energy delivery mechanism, its indefinite shelf life, and its correct storage requirements is small. That gap between possession and understanding is where preparation actually breaks down, not in the acquiring, in the knowing. The combination of fast energy, antimicrobial function, and indefinite shelf life makes honey the single most multifunctional item on this list. Every other item does one or two things exceptionally. Honey does three things exceptionally, in a format that requires no preparation, no equipment, and essentially no storage care beyond the moisture rule. In a scenario where your supply of every other food has been exhausted, depleted, spoiled, or consumed, honey is the item most likely to still be there, still intact, still functional. Not because it is perfect, because it does not disappear with time the way everything else does. Here is the full picture. Salt maintains your electrolyte systems and keeps your body capable of using the energy you consume. Oats provide slow-release energy without requiring any preparation infrastructure. Peanut butter delivers dense calories and protein in a ready-access format. Canned fish and canned meat supply the complete protein your body requires to avoid breaking down its own muscle tissue. And honey provides rapid energy delivery, extended shelf life, and antimicrobial function across a range of scenarios where nothing else can cover the gap.
These 5 items are not exciting. They are not the things people instinctively reach for when they think about being prepared. They do not make for compelling shopping list aesthetics, but they share the same core characteristic. They work when other things do not. They are usable when systems are down, when preparation time is gone, when normal conditions no longer apply. Look at your kitchen right now, not as the well-stocked space you see every day, but through the specific lens of what here can I actually use without power, without running water, without heat within the next 5 minutes. That real inventory, the honest version, is probably smaller than the total food you see. That gap between total food and usable food is the gap this list closes. The people who do best in disrupted conditions are not always the ones who stockpiled the most. They are the ones who understood the difference between stocking shelves and stocking correctly. Volume without function is not preparedness. It is the appearance of preparedness, and the appearance is only convincing until the conditions change. You do not need to overhaul everything at once. You need 5 things. Most of them you can acquire or confirm in a single grocery run. Salt, specifically iodized, oats, stored in an airtight container, peanut butter, conventional for extended shelf life, canned fish and canned meat, inspected and stored off the floor, and honey, sealed, kept dry, kept at stable temperature. That is not a complex system, it is a complete one, and the difference between a complex system and a complete system is that complete systems actually get implemented. Here is a final thought worth carrying. Most people recognize the logic of preparation after the moment when preparation was still easy, not because they are careless, but because normalcy is convincing. When systems work, it is hard to imagine them failing. The discipline required is not dramatic, it's the quiet discipline of acting before you have to. If you have found value in this breakdown, take 1 second to hit the like button. It genuinely helps this content reach people who need it, and it tells my channel, to keep making content like this. And if you want to keep building on what you learned here, the next video continues this conversation with 12 specific grocery items you need before conditions shift further. One question before you go. What is the single item you always keep at home because you instinctively trust it? And what is the one item you thought you had covered, but after watching this, you were not so sure about? Leave your answer in the comments. Your response may be exactly what someone else needed to hear before they found out the hard way.